Welcome to Real Wisdom, where we dive into the real stories of remarkable women. Today, I'm excited to introduce someone I've known and admired for over 20 years, Laura Rounce. Laura's journey from HR executive to passionate coach and advocate is truly inspiring. And if you're curious to hear more stories like Laura's, make sure to hit the subscribe button. I thought a good way to get started would be to talk about the year of COVID. 2020 was quite a year for all of us, and especially, I imagine, for someone in the role of HR. Do you want
Yeah.
to tell us a little bit about how that affected you and your staff and your job?
It was sort of a blur for me. I was one of those people, Jar, that went to work every day. I didn't do Zoom work very often. When all of my friends were saying, oh my gosh, I cleaned out my closet, I went to Goodwill, I did all that, I know what you're talking about. It taught me a lot about work ethic and how important it was for the employees that had to go to work every day that they saw a
Mm-hmm.
leader there with them. I very easily could have stayed at home. I wanted to make sure that they felt that they were part of a team. I was in the industry where we were teaching professional students how to be doctors, eye
Okay.
doctors. And you can't really teach that from home or over Zoom.
Right.
So we had a building full of patients, and patients didn't have a lot of options for where they go for their medical needs, and we needed to stay open for them. Therefore, we
Mm-hmm.
needed our students to come in and see the patients, and we also needed the staff to be there. We immediately scrambled and put together online work and training for them to do because there really wasn't work from home option for them. You can't work from home when you're in patient care. So
Right.
we, as fast as we could, put together training programs that they could do about 6 hours a day, logging in and learning things so they could justify being paid. So we only closed for 2 weeks, but I wanted to go in every day. And then I was told, you're over 60. You are one of those vulnerable people. You're going to get COVID and die if you go in. It's like, wait, this is just not going well for me at all. But we masked up, we went in, and I went in every day.
Do you think that it was at this time that maybe the seeds of retirement were being planted?
Holly, that's exactly what happened after, we got through those 2 years and I fought every day. I felt relieved and I felt
Mm-hmm.
sad. And I felt like I had hit, the grand slam in the 9th inning of the World Series because I kept everyone getting paid for 2 years. And that's when I thought, you
Right.
know what? It's not going to get much better than this. I feel really good about this sort of cap in my career. And I gave my notice. I gave about a 5-month notice and I retired.
What did that feel like? Was there excitement or were you intimidated by the thought, how am I going to fill my days?
Both of those things and all of those things. I was scared to death because this is what I did. This is what I love. I loved the employees. I loved, my team. I loved everybody. And I thought I should go before I got bitter. And luckily,
Oh,
I could go. I called my
right.
husband and I talked about it. I called the financial guy. I'm like, oh my gosh, can I go? I was scared to death, but I did it. And I'm really happy about it. It's been, about 2 years since I retired. And, the old cliche, you'll be so busy, you won't know what to do with yourself. It's sort of true, but you also have to make sure that you're doing the things that fulfill you. Right.
Right. So can we really call it retirement? Because I think you're probably filling your days with a lot of different things. And I know that you started your own business.
Yes.
Do you want to tell me a little bit
You're
about
right.
that?
Retirement has such a bad connotation, especially for, women of my age. They're retired, they're invisible. I got certified in professional coaching because I felt
Okay.
like that was one of my strengths that I did, throughout my career. And I kept doing the things that I loved to do when I was commuting to work every day was coaching people, mostly women and mostly rising stars that wanted to step up their career, talking to
Oh, that's
them
nice.
about my story, about how I became who I became and helping them get to that next level. Small, easy steps to help people just a little bit every day get a little more professional or get a seat at the table, as we call it. In my
Okay.
generation, women needed to get a seat at the table. So yeah, I do
Um,
that and I love it. And I do it as much as I want or as little as I want. And it's also led to me getting jobs as HR consultant. So I've
oh,
been doing that as well. I have to be honest. It's fun to continue to use the tools that I gained over the 40 years that I worked. It's fun to keep using those tools because it would be easy for me
and
to fall into grandma mode, right?
oh, sure.
And
And
yeah,
isn't that what people expected of
no,
you?
that's what people said to me. Oh, you're
Yeah.
retiring because your daughter has 2 kids now. And I go, oh, they go, so you're just going to babysit and stuff, right? And part of me thought, maybe that's the right answer. Am I going to be a jerk if I go, I'm not going to babysit when I retire? And so I
There's
was
no
like,
way.
yeah, sure. But I also had friends that retired and started babysitting 5 days a week. And I was appalled because I didn't want
Yeah.
to do it. But I also didn't want to say to my daughter, yeah, I'm not babysitting those kids. So it was one of those things, just like women always do of, wait, am I a woman and I'm supposed to be a mother and a grandmother, or am I still, a relevant member of the corporate world? And so I,
Right.
again, was sort of pretending that, oh, yes, I'm going to be a grandmother. And then telling the other people, oh, no, I'm still a driving executive. So I don't know why we do that to ourselves, but I'm in my middle 60s and I still do it.
Well, sometimes it almost feels we're torturing ourselves because we're torn between these two
Yeah.
worlds. And what is the name of your consulting business?
It's called Red Swing Professional Consulting. Professional coaching. Sorry, I do both. Red Swing Professional Coaching.
That's an interesting name. How did you come up with that?
What I was proud of when I was working was that I felt that I was a safe space for employees that needed
Mhm.
to talk, men and women. And I thought about where my safe space was in my life.
Okay.
My safe space was when I was young, under 10 years old, and I was sitting on my grandmother's red swing. My parents moved around a lot because my dad was, back in the day, family friendly benefits. Every 2 years, they would say, oh, guess what? Now you're moving to Denver or now you're moving to Seattle. And so I was always the new kid. The only place that was my safe place that didn't change was on my grandma's porch. She and I would sit on her red swing and I could talk about whatever I wanted to. I knew she wasn't going to tell my parents and I knew she wasn't going to make fun of me. And it just came to me that that was the safe space. So red swing means a lot to me. When people want to meet with me, they look at my website because I tell the whole long story on there. But it's just
Mhm.
supposed to be a safe space.
Oh, that's a really beautiful sentiment. I'm sure those moments obviously left a big
Yeah.
impression on you. And that's probably the kind of impression that you're wanting to leave with the people that you're
Right.
helping.
Well, because there's a lot of times that we won't even admit to ourselves what's going on, right? It's
Mhm.
just hard.
Yeah.
We just want to show this persona of, yeah, I've got it all together. And sometimes you have to be on the red swing to finally just let go.
With that in mind, I'd like to do something fun right now. Are you up for it?
Yes. I hope
Okay.
so.
Well, we're gonna do a little segment called this or that.
Okay.
So, coffee or tea in the morning,
Coffee.
ebook or hardcover,
Hardcover.
city vacation or nature retreat,
Nature retreat.
early bird or night owl,
Early bird. Early to
early
bed.
bird, cooking at home or dining out.
So we do a lot of cooking at home, but I would rather dine out.
Do you have a specialty that you like to make?
My specialty is chili. My
First,
kids also call it what I do. When I was working, I did crock pot every day, and they called it CPC, crock pot crap. So I'm thinking of retiring the crock pot.
well, now you need to get an air fryer
That
because apparently
yes,
that's
I
the
guess.
the new thing that
Yeah.
you do. Okay, one more: classic movies or current blockbusters.
That's a tough one. I can't. Both. Love both.
Okay, I know that especially during the winter months, I really like to read, get into it with a good book. Are you a reader? And if you are, has there been a book recently that either personally or professionally has made an impact on you?
I like to read self-help books. I don't know how many more times I have to read that I have imposter syndrome, and so does everybody, all the women at least. I had Good Morning America this morning, or the Today Show, one of them, and they were talking about these women that are so successful and they have imposter syndrome. I'm like, well, okay, I guess I'm in good company because what in the world?
Well, you look at them and, how is that even
Right,
possible? You're so successful and you have all these great things happening in your life and they still don't feel
right.
like what you said, that they have a seat at the table or that they
Right.
deserve to
Or
be
I don't
there.
deserve to be here. And I was thinking that right before our interview today. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have the imposter syndrome. My hair looks terrible, the stupid sweater. What am I going to do? And I go, okay, stop it, stop it.
So you have had a very impressive
Well,
career
thank you.
in HR. What was a pivotal moment that may have shaped your career? It could have kept you on the path. It could have changed the path.
Well, I know some people don't really know what their point was like, oh, this is what I should be doing. Boy, I know. In retrospect, I know. I didn't know at the time, but I'll give you my little summary. When I was growing up, my dad was the type of a madman kind of guy. He went to work, had secretaries, and had his drink after work, like one of those guys, right? And so when we were growing up, my brother was always going to be somebody, and my sister was always the smart one, and he just thought I was kind of the middle kid. And so he told me that, and I said, well, I think I want to be a teacher. He goes, no, you can't be a teacher. I go, then I'm going to be a nurse. I don't think you're smart enough to be a nurse. Okay. I wonder where the imposter syndrome came from, right? So he goes, you need to go into business and you could be a secretary. I'm like, all right. So, I go through college and I don't really pay much attention because my dad told me, and I love my dad to death, God rest his
Yes.
soul, but it was just sort of the thing, like you can be a secretary. So when I got out of college, I applied for jobs and I got a job as a legal assistant in a big law firm. Oh my God.
Oh,
And it was in the John Hancock building. At the
okay.
time,
Yeah.
when I moved here, it was a big, tallest building in Chicago. And I'm like, I have made it, right? And I got an apartment and I took the L to the city and I felt like I was Mary Tyler Moore, like you're gonna
Yes.
make it after all. So that I'm like, look at me. I got a big job in a big building, legal assistant. Well, what I didn't know is legal assistant is like below legal secretary. It was sort of the go make these copies, do this, do that. Okay. That's all right. They're paying me at the time $13,000 a year. I went, that's more than $1,000 a month. Oh my gosh. Right?
Perfect. Right? Yes.
I was, well, the woman that was in charge of HR, I think she felt sorry for me. And she was leaving and she said, I'm going to go. I think she liked my work ethic, right? Because I
Okay.
was happy and I'm doing my thing and I'm making $13,000 a year. And she said, I'm leaving and I'm going to go up the street to a different company in the Sears Tower, or in the John Hancock building. I want you to come with me and I will teach you everything you need to know about human resources. I said, okay. And she said it pays $14,500 a year. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm there. So I left the big law firm and went to another big firm, and I was her HR assistant. Then, when we all graduated from college, we got the book called How to Dress for Success. And people that are my age will know the book, right? You wore a blue suit with a white shirt and this little ribbon, I remember
Yes.
that tie,
Uh-huh. I know what
and
you're talking
flat
about.
shoes. Da, da, da. Well, that's exactly how the HR person dressed. I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. So I sort of kept my own style. And she would say, look, you really need to do this, you need to do that. She was
Okay.
very prim and proper. No one liked her. But she, I was outside her office, like helping and being lovely and, being normal. And she was pretty rigid. Well, she got fired. And they go, okay, well, you're going to have to take over. I go, okay, no idea what to do. So I took over and I got certified and just learned, like just figured it out on the fly. And back in the
Okay.
day, human resources, like they didn't think it was much of a big deal, right? Just make sure everyone gets
Right.
paid, hire people. And I learned everything I could. And then about 7 years later, I moved on and I was hired as a vice president for human resources. And now we're starting to talk about a whole bunch of different things that, so the FMLA, I was all about it. It was when I was having babies, all of that kind of stuff. And so that's
Yes.
why I'm sort of interested in, especially, what you work on. So
Right.
now I'm in a
Mhm.
different phase and we all need benefits at different phases. I see lipstick right here. Can someone edit that out?
Well,
Someone
we're
edit that
getting
out?
to the we'll edit that out. We're getting to the end of the episode. And
Oh,
it is at this point in time that I would like to give you the opportunity to share something that you're working on, that you're passionate about right now.
okay. So, as I alluded to with the FMLA, now with taking care of your elders, the other phase that I'm going through, and many of my friends, is my menopause journey, which
Okay.
we're not really allowed to say menopause out loud. But I remember a time in my life when you weren't supposed to say, I'm going to have a baby or I'm pregnant out loud,
Okay.
especially in the business world, because that meant, oh, she's a girl, she's not. So menopause is that same kind of word, like no one really says
Okay.
it out loud or it's a joke. And I believe, I've been reading a lot about it. There's not a lot of menopause discussions, support, or benefits in the workplace. So I would love to see menopause being the next FMLA. And then when we get through with the menopause and get that normalized, we'll see what else I'm dealing with in my life. But my knee replacement, maybe. But, back in the day, who ever thought that we'd be able to talk about pregnancy? And I mean, I had a girlfriend that's just a little bit older than me that when she was 6 months pregnant, they said, go home, you're done. And so when FMLA came, it was like, and I would love to see that about menopause as well, right? And then
Right.
other things that we're going through.
For example, do you have something else that you feel affects women, especially women of this age group?
I also think women of this age finding our purpose again, right?
Hmm.
What are we after we're young and then we're students and then we're wives and then we're mothers and then we're working. Then what? What about this gray area, this invisible section of when you retire and your kids are grown? What's
Yes.
that, right? Not just now I have menopause and now I'm getting old, right?
Right.
And
Right.
menopause also isn't just for people that are mid 60s, right? A lot of people start menopause way earlier and they don't even
Hmm.
know it. There's just no discussion about menopause because it's like the secret joke, like, oh, hot flashes, like it's a joke.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
unfortunately, you see a lot of that where it does end up being a joke. And then I think women think to themselves, well, I'm not, who am I going to go to until
can't say this out loud. Right,
no,
right. There are feminine issues and men don't have to talk about that kind of stuff.
no. And just one more thing, because you had brought it up, and that was caring for aging parents. And I think that also is something that falls on the shoulders of women. And Your mom is
My mom is
how
90.
old or where is she?
My mom
Okay.
is 90 and she lives alone and she drives and she's great, right? Till
Okay.
she's not. Because I retired from the commuting world, I am able to go see her much more and do what I want to do that way. But what about the women or men that can't? And we need to normalize that as well. It's different with elder care. It's not that linear. And so
No.
that's another thing that we've got to work on to normalize that as well, right?
Right. Well, Lauren, thank you so much. I feel that this has just been a really great conversation. I've learned so much about you and just, the way women tend to have to navigate their life and the things that come up. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for not having me cry.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't
I didn't
cry
cry.
because I am a true crier and I could guarantee you that if you started, I also would
Okay, well,
start
that was
crying.
good then. Thank you,
Thank
Holly.
you. Thank you for joining us on Real Wisdom. If you're inspired by stories like this and want to be part of a community that celebrates the wisdom of women, visit joinimpart.com and become part of our conversation. Don't forget to subscribe here for even more real wisdom. Until next time, keep embracing your story.